Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Cross, and I am here with Dixie Forsyth and her sister, Kristine Hales, for a feminine moment. And we just got a question in that we thought we'd answer today. And it says, what are some ways that we can inspire our husband to become the leader? Who wants to start with that?
Well, yes, I can.
Okay.
There's a lot, without knowing more specifics about that, there's different kinds of leaders. They're not all alphas. Not all men are alphas.
Good point.
And nor do they need to be. And if you're married to a really great man, but he's not an alpha, there's probably things about him that you love that you maybe wouldn't get if he was an alpha. So you can't just get this guy tailor-made. You want this alpha and this one not. And so you got to figure out what things are really important to you. But remember, without manipulation, which we don't believe in FW, doesn't work anyway.
Right.
We need to work on more inspiring them. First of all, the first thing to do, I would say, is to look at yourself and see, are you in a leadership position yourself? Because in your work or whatever, or are you more of an alpha female? Because when a woman is in a position, she owns her own business, she's in charge, she's maybe has a job that's more professional where she has to be very assertive. For example. Sometimes I have caught myself when I've had situations like that thinking, I'm becoming a little bit more assertive than I want to be. I'll catch myself thinking, I think it's because it's related to when I was in charge of this thing over here, and I have to kind of watch myself that I'm not becoming too much of an alpha myself. And some men, if we do, they kind of, especially certain men who aren't the real major alpha dogs, will let her.
And a lot of men just
will let her.
Yeah.
And the other situation I can think of is if he may not feel as much like you need him to be a leader. Does he know you need him to be a leader? To me, the best way of showing that is to not tell him that, but to leave things to him, like, what do you think we should do? And in that kind of sense, rather than I need you to be more of a leader, that isn't going to go over so well.
Yeah, I see kind of leadership in 2 points. One would be, and I think we as women sometimes get into this and we get kind of confused with what leadership really is. And it's tasks. We're and some decisions, but a lot of times it's tasks. When I talk to a lot of women, they say, well, I wish my husband would lead out by doing this. And really what they want to do is have a task list that they can assign to him and assign to her. And if he doesn't do those things on the tasks list, then he's not leading out in the area she thinks he ought to because he's not doing it. You see what I mean? So
yes.
Sometimes women can think of leadership in that when they think, my husband's not leading out, he's not doing these particular things. The other thing is leadership really is influence. So if leadership is influence and we want to inspire that, we need to appreciate the influence that he has. Like Dixie says, it's going to be very different for different men. Men will bring in different things into the family. But if we have a list of things that they need to be like in order to meet this idea of what we have as masculine, instead of really seeing the influence they bring in, then we can miss who they are. And so that takes,
true,
watching them, seeing them, appreciating what their particular outlook on it. And you can actually maximize that by when he has a good thing that he is expressing, either a philosophy in life. Man, I would bring my kids in and say, listen to what Dad has been thinking about.
Yeah.
And then he teaches the kids. That brings in an influence into the family that he may have kept in his head. But you can maximize that by giving him an audience of his own children. Then he can express the philosophies of life that he has. I don't know of anything that leads better than then creating moral philosophies in our children. And so, when I think of my husband, that's what I think of, is the philosophies he's left with my children. To me, that is the part of leadership I could not have lived without, that I just so appreciate in him. And sometimes we don't think of that.
Yeah.
Most of us don't want to have a sheep. We want to be led like a shepherd rather than a sheep herder who drives the flock. A shepherd, the sheep love him, and so they follow him because they love him. And so most of us want a shepherd. If we want our husbands to be a leader, we want them to be more of a shepherd. And we can, feminine influence and power is fantastic for this.
Yeah.
Too, if you don't feel like your husband, you wish he would do a little more. First of all, there's accepting at face value, but then there's also charm and needing him. Does he know you need him? Men need to feel needed, and they love to feel needed. Maybe he doesn't realize that you need him as much as you do.
That's great. Those are all things that we need to be reminded of, or maybe someone's hearing this for the first time. But I love how you have called being the leader or leadership in the family as the influencer. Can you?
There's two leaders in a family. There's the more of a task leader, which men tend to be very good at.
Well, some women are the task leaders because they're at home all the time. And so they're leading all these tasks with all the kids, and they can't wait till the dad gets home because they want him to take that on. I think that's maybe some of the problem, is how do you create that transition of letting the husband be or doing that, because you're tired of doing it.
But some women are. The other leader that's really important is the relationship leader, which women tend to be very good at. We're the ones who are concerned about, and we may have talked about this before, how people feel while they're getting the task done. Whereas task leaders tend to we've got to teach these values in our kids. We've got to get these chores done. We've got to make sure these kids do these certain things and grow up this certain way. And women are more concerned with, how do they feel about it? Do they want to? How are they having a hard time at this school?
Or even when you have a task leader that the kids are not understanding the love behind it, because they're just saying what a task is. We interpret that to the children. Now, your dad's asking you to do this because this is what happens. And so we put in that aspect. We interpret what he's doing into an emotional viewpoint for the kids. That's hugely valuable. And not only does it help the kids, it validates the husband at the same time.
But if there's no children, let's say there aren't any children, or the children are grown, women can still inspire men who they wish took a little bit more of a lead out by, I think they're simply needing them and them know that you need them.
Yeah.
Yeah, most men, especially masculine men, they love to feel needed. And if they're married to somebody who's very talented, very competent, very successful, they may not feel as simply as needed.
Well, what would you ask a woman to say to her husband, or advise her? How can she make him feel needed? In what words would she?
Well, we're talking about charm here, and femininity. And that's when I say she can say things like, I really don't know what to do. What do you think? Leaving the decision, you can show someone you need them by the way you treat them, not so much the words you say, which sounds more like a technique, as much as letting them know that you need them, and that's not that hard.
And then the other thing is, if a woman, say like the person who's asking the question is asking that, she does need him. She's actually when we feel stress about something, it's like saying, I need some help here. I'm not wearing this well. This doesn't. Usually, if we're getting into something that's overwhelming to us, we feel it, and we say, okay, I need some help. That's where it starts. And so maybe it's because some of the things that you're feeling that stress on, you feel like you have to do because there's going to be a vacancy if he doesn't do it. And so we start doing things that we really are not very good at, we're overwhelmed with, out of desperation because we feel a vacancy. However, if you leave the vacancy, if you don't leave the vacancy, no one will fill it, right? I mean, wait a minute. If you don't leave the vacancy, you don't have a place for someone to fill. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
That's what yeah.
And so what's wrong with leaving a vacancy every once in a while?
Yeah.
And then letting both of you feel the vacancy. And then,
I love that.
Yeah, that's maybe a place to start.
Yeah.
Sometimes we feel like it's life or death if something doesn't get done. It's really not.
Right. And
that transition of creating, that transition of creating need for both of them is worth more than a temporary vacancy.
Just remember that men need to know that you need their protection, their strength, and even their sense of humor.
Love it. That's great. Thank you, ladies, so much. Everybody watching, we appreciate you liking, following, sharing all this advice with your friends. And we will be back again, perhaps on Monday, with more of A Feminine Moment. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.